All right, guys, we are going to be making some watercolor crystals, and they're going to end up looking kind of like this, but I'm not going to add the second colors yet. I'm just going to do one color for right now, okay? The way that we draw the crystals is we're going to start out by drawing some lines, parallel lines, and then we're going to add points on the top. So it kind of looks like the Washington Monument. I'm going to add a down line across and back up. So right here where these corners are, it's going to go down, across, and then back up. And then I'm going to connect all of these to the top. So starting where the angles are, like this, I'm going to make another one. Maybe I'm going to erase a little bit right here so it comes out in front of that one. I'm going to make another one that comes out. So just the same thing. I'm going to draw two parallel lines. I'm going to draw a point. And then at these corners, I'm going to come down, across, and back up. Connect those to the point. And then bring these lines back down the front of the crystals. I'm going to make another one. Maybe that one's going to go in front as well. I'll make a tall, skinny one here. And then again, I'm going to start at the corner. I'm going to go down, across, back up. Connect to the point, and then straight back down. All right, the bottoms of crystal clusters are usually look like a little pile of rocks where the crystals are starting to form. Okay, once I have these started, I'm going to start with my palette. My palette is just a used CD case, so thank you, Sam Kober, for teaching me about using these as a palette. That's such a cool idea. Okay, so I've got my purple right here. I'm going to add lots of water to this purple. So I've been painting with this before in another class. I want the lightest purple I can get. So I'm adding lots of water to one little spot so that I can get a really light purple. Okay, I'm going to start by painting the front facet the lightest color purple I can get. So on the screen, it might look like there's no color here. It's just a very, very light purple. When it dries, it's going to look like almost like white. All right, so I've got the lightest color I can get on the front. I'm going to do these baby crystals down here as well. Light as possible. All right, so I've got my light color there. In order to make something look 3D, you need to have 3 different values. So we're going to have light, medium, and dark. I'm going to have a different light, medium, and dark up here so that there's contrast, but also so that they look like it looks like there's contrast between these two pieces, but they're both going to be very light. So I want to keep those very light. I'm not going to do this middle piece yet, though, because this is wet down here. So if I painted this, then the colors would run together and it would just be one color. So I'm going to give it a few minutes to dry while I work on another color. So I have some medium color mixed right here already. So that's got a little bit more paint and a little bit less water. So I'm going to put my medium color right here. And notice that these are 2 different purples. Where these two meet, I'm going to make sure I leave a little bit of white. I might have to go back in and fix it later, but I don't want the colors to run together, so I'm going to leave a little bit of space there. And then on the other side, I'm going to add my dark color. So my dark color is going to be over here. It's got more paint and not as much water, but it's still got a lot of water in it. I still want it to be translucent, right? Translucent is when you can see through something, but you can see light through it. It's not totally transparent like glass. So I want that to be translucent. I want it to show the white of the paper through the paint. So if your paint is so thick that you can't see any of the white showing through, you can't see light through it, then it's too thick. You can always make it darker by adding more layers, but you can't really make it lighter. So we want to keep that beautiful translucence that watercolors are known for. So this is my dark color. It's still kind of a medium color, but that's okay. It's darker than that color, so that's good. If I decide I want it darker later, I can add another layer. All right. I think it might be okay to go ahead and try to do this piece. Let's see. I think that's going to be all right. Okay. So I need to wait a little while for this to dry. So I'm going to let it sit for a minute, and I'm going to come back and do my other darker colors. Okay, this is good and dry, so I'm going to go ahead and finish with the colors. So you can see I have all of these pieces left to paint that are not touching for the most part. So I'm going to knock those out. I'm actually going to start down here with this one because this one, I want it to dry so I can paint the one right beside it. All right, so I'm going to use some darker colors. These are down here kind of like all together, so there would be a lot of shadow there. So I'm going to paint this one dark. This paintbrush is actually a little bit too big, but it's what I have right now. It's best to use a paintbrush that's smaller. It's a little bit of too much water, so I'm going to soak some of that up. A napkin works. You can also squeeze the paint out of your brush and use your brush to blot some of the color if you need to. All right, I want some dark purple right here. This reminds me of the Dark Crystal. Do you guys know the Dark Crystal? If you do not know this movie, you need to check it out. So good. There we go. Want this maybe a little bit darker. Any place where you need a little bit darker, just touch the paintbrush to the water, or to the paint, I mean, and just put a little bit of paint on there. It'll spread by itself. There we go. Like that dark purple. Watercolors are supposed to be very, very light and translucent, so anytime I use dark colors, I try to make it minimal, just to add depth. But try to keep everything else pretty light. You want to keep these edges as straight as possible. crystals have straight edges. There we go, that's looking pretty good. All right. Let's see. I think I want another medium dark over here. Hopefully that'll have time to dry before I do something else. Blot that a little bit. You don't want to press down when you're blotting. You just want to allow the fibers of the paper towel to suck up the water without putting any pressure on it, because you don't want to spread the color anywhere you don't really want it to go. All right, I'm going to get some of these medium colors. So remember, medium colors are a little bit of paint and more water. For dark colors, you want less water, and you want to put more of the paint pigment into the water. So just playing with that level of water versus pigment is how you get these different shades. These might run into each other a little bit because they touch right there. It's not really what I want to happen, but if it does, I can always go back in after everything is dry and adjust by adding a little bit more contrast. All right. And then remember, up here is the really light, so I want to make sure my paint is very, very light, almost white. One thing that's cool is if you want to add a little bit more contrast, you can just, but you don't want to paint the whole thing that color, you can just go in with a little bit of color and just put it right there on the edge and let it spread. Sometimes crystals do that, so that's kind of a neat effect. You can watch this color spread while we're talking here. I'm going to go back over here, do this side. Maybe put like a super dark piece right here for this tiny side, because it would be getting some shadow. This might be pretty dark. You can also go on some of these really light pieces and you can create like a couple little bands of color. Sometimes crystals have these little, I think they're called occlusions or inclusions, I'm not really sure. Sometimes they have little pieces that have different colors in them. Maybe somebody who knows crystals can tell me what that's called. I think I want these to be a little darker. Put some little shadows in there. Put a little extra water there and let the paint do some cool things. Sometimes if you want paint to move around on its own, you can just add a little extra water and just let the paint do its thing. All right, so the next thing that I would do once this dried is I would go around the edges with some light purple and just paint the paper all with water and just drip some of the purple around so that it looks like the purple, like the light is shining through the purple crystals and casting onto the background. Sometimes you can even add additional colors. So you end up with something like this.